Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us for today to learn more about the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program, the job offer streams, which we will be covering throughout our session today. My name is Angela Verzosa, and I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I'm also an active member of the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultant, who's the official regulatory board that issues licenses for immigration consultants like me and Mary. I'm also the founder and managing director of AV Immigration and Visa Services Incorporated. So for today, we're very excited at AV Immigration because to offer you this free webinar. Um, with direct collaboration with my friend and colleague in the profession, Mary Ogenyi-Igoche from Ubuntu um, Immigration Consulting. So the first 20 minutes, I'll be able to cover the OINP job offer streams. That includes the employer criteria as well to support the OINP applicant. And then my colleague, Mary, will also using the next 20 minutes to help cover and share the different scoring factors for the OINP expression of interest application, including some tips and common refusal grounds to avoid to make sure that your applications are going to be successful. So after that, we hope to have some extra time to answer any questions or clarifications that you guys may have regarding the topic for today. And then, of course, we will be proceeding with covering the standard criteria for the program. Now, if there are any, case-specific issues or concerns related to your file or cases, you can always schedule a separate consultation to myself or to Mary at a later time. Okay. So before we proceed, Jasmine, do you want to introduce yourself?
Mas aí, gente, a minha vida, Deus.
Okay, hello everyone. Good afternoon. I am Jasmine Nayuman, and I am the Marketing and Communications Admin here at AV Immigrations and Visa Services. And I will be providing assistance for today, and I hope you have fun and learn a lot for today's webinar. Sit tight and hang tight. Refrain from unmuting your mic, please. Do not disrupt our presenters and speakers flow. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Jazz. So let's move on to the next slide so we can go ahead and start. Okay, so just a bit of information about myself and AV Immigration. So in addition to being licensed as an RCIC, I also graduated from Queen's University, taking up immigration and citizenship law, where Mary and I were alumni from the same school. So if this is your first time joining our free webinar at AV Immigration, to give everyone a bit of a context, I'm speaking to you today from the beautiful community of Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, where our practice is proudly based. So for those unfamiliar, we're located about 7-hour drive north of Toronto, and just about 30 minutes drive from the International Bridge connecting us from the Michigan state in the United States. So over the years at AV Immigration, we've worked with clients from many different countries and immigration situations. Although our office is based in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, we actually provide support to clients in Canada, in Canada, countrywide, and also outside Canada support. Okay. All right, so we'll proceed with the next slide. Okay, so overview. So the OINP employer job offer streams are actually designed to bridge Ontario's labor market needs by attracting skilled workers and international talent. So we have three different key streams in the OINP job offer program. That includes the international student stream, the foreign worker stream, and the in-demand skill stream. So the first one, the international student stream, this is specifically for recent graduates from any eligible Canadian institution with a valid job offer in the province of Ontario. Second one, the foreign worker stream. This targets skilled workers from within or outside Canada with experience in eligible occupations. So specifically, high skilled work is required. So it has to be tiers 0, 1, 2, or 3 for this one. Um, Last one is the in-demand skill stream. So this one focuses on workers with job offer in high demand tier 4 or 5 occupations. So as you can see, each stream offers a unique route to permanent residency, which we will be exploring in detail in the next few slides. One key point here, though, that you may want to take note of is for you to participate in the program for OINP, you need to have a full-time permanent job offer to participate in any of the three systems. So what that means is, say for example, we've seen a lot of clients wanting to participate in the program. However, they have, say, part-time contract with an employer working full-time hours. So for cases like that, unfortunately, even if you're working full-time hours, it's not possible for you to move forward with your participation because a full-time employment is actually required. Okay. Next slide, Jess. Okay, so we'll talk about the international student stream first. Next slide. Let's look at the job offer requirements. Okay. So for the job offer requirements for international student stream, we have these items are as our key points. So the job offer must be, again, full-time and permanent. So when we say full-time, this is 30 hours a week for you to qualify. The position must fall under tier categories 0, 1, 2, or 3. So what that means is your position must be high skilled. So there are certain occupations that don't qualify for the international student stream. So say, for example, you work as a housekeeper. Housekeeping work is would fall under a light duty cleaner, which is a tier 5 occupation. So that being said, you will not be able to proceed with your submission for the OINP international student stream with that specific occupation. Okay. And then next is the wage. So with international student stream, it's not a requirement for you to have median wage rate or a high wage rate. It's just required that at least you're meeting the low wage level requirement set for that specific position in your specific region. So it doesn't need to be high, but it has to be something acceptable based on your occupation and location. And the only here of course another item that I've included here, if you belong to the union in your specific employer, then the wage rate must be consistent with that as well. Okay. We'll go to the next slide for the applicant requirement. Okay, so for the applicant requirement, the main one here is your education credential. Let me see. So for your education credential, again, you must be a graduate of an eligible Canadian institution with at least 50% of studies completed in Canada. No prior work experience is required for this specific stream, But again, licensing is necessary for specific occupations that are regulated. Um, Applicants must also demonstrate your intent to live in Ontario and maintain your legal status in Ontario. And if you're a recent graduate in Ontario, again, this stream offers a fantastic opportunity to transition into the workforce and secure permanent residency. So there are some additional items here in my slide that I want to go over with. One would be no work experience required. I encounter a lot of applicants in this specific stream thinking that, you know, you have to work at least a minimum of 6 months or 1 year before you can participate in this program. So that is not accurate. As soon as you finish your program, and you obtain a full-time job offer from a tier 0, 1, 2, or 3 occupation, uh, you are able to move forward with your expression of interest under this specific stream. Now, another key area though that I want to highlight here will be the education credentials. So we did mention that it has to be an education credential that's qualified for the specific program. So what that means is it has to be, say, an Ontario a graduate certificate or at least a 2-year diploma program for it to qualify. Um, College certificates are not qualified for the international student stream. So I know there are some questions around that as well. I typically encounter people asking about, okay, I have a college certificate for personal support worker. Will that qualify me for OINP international student stream? So again, unfortunately, a 1-year college certificate will not meet the program guideline for international student stream. Okay. And then before I leave the international student stream, so before I leave the international student stream, uh, program, I also want to highlight the last item in here, which is the application period. So you have to make sure that you're able to submit your application within 2 years of completing your educational program. So when you say within 2 years, that includes the submission of the application when you get nominated on by the province. So sometimes, you know, we understand sometimes it takes a while before you can secure a high skilled position, or sometimes you know, it just life happens, you go on maternity or stuff like that. You tend to spend most of those times not really focusing on proceeding with the next step for your permanent resident prospect. So for cases like that, just take note the 2-year golden rule around that. If you have completed your program and it's been over 2 years, unfortunately, you won't be able to qualify anymore under the international student stream. Okay. Next slide, Jazz. Okay. So we'll now talk about the foreign worker stream. So under the job offer requirements, same requirement, you need to have full-time permanent work. So again, minimum of 30 hours weekly for you to qualify here. The job must be permanent. Again, no end date. And then it's not contract-based, not seasonal. Also, the position should be high-skilled. So which means only tier categories 0, 1, 2, or 3 would be acceptable. One key difference here when you look at the job offer requirements for the foreign worker stream, there is a median wage job requirement for the position and the region. Earlier on, we mentioned that for the international student stream, as long as you meet the low wage rate set for the position in the region, you're good. However, here for foreign worker stream, you need to be at the wage rate for you to qualify. The only exception for that is if you're working in an environment where it is unionized or you're bound by collective bargaining agreement. So if that's the case, then even if your wage rate is not meeting the median wage rate, you're safe to proceed with your application for this specific stream. Okay. And then, yeah, so for the next slide, Jazz. Okay, so now let's talk about the applicant requirements. So for the applicant, for you to qualify for the foreign worker stream, you need to have at least a total of 2 years work experience obtained in the last 5 years. So it could be, it does not need to be consecutive work experience, but if you sum up all of your work experience duration, it should be equal to 2 years and must be obtained in the last 5 years. So for example, if we're talking about, if our point of reference for the time is today, you're able to count all of your work experience from 2021 February 7 up until the present time. So that's the last 5 years, which is important when you try to count the total work experience. Another key item here that we should take note of is the type of work experience that's qualified for this specific stream. Okay, so take note that it has to be in the same NOC. Okay, so I understand there's a lot of questions or concerns around, sometimes your position, your past position or your past occupations are relevant to your existing occupation. It does not matter. Program officers are actually very strict in this specific area. If you're, for instance, if you're working as a PSW, personal support worker, the NOC for that is 33102. Your work experiences that would count should fall under the same NOC. It cannot be as a nurse, it cannot be as a practical nurse or any healthcare related work that could potentially be relevant to the work of the PSW. So unfortunately, we've seen a lot of refusal on that specific area. So we would want to highlight that it has to be the same NOC. Okay. Um, there. And then for the next slide, Jazz. Okay, so let's now move on and talk about the in-demand skill stream. So for the in-demand skill stream, job offer requirements, again, has to be full-time as well. So 30 hours a week, 1,560 hours in a year, not contract-based, no end date. And in the in-demand skill stream, this would cover positions that are in tier 4 or 5 occupation. Again, not all tier 4 or 5 occupations are also qualified. There is a specific list where you can check if your specific occupation is qualified under this stream. There's a landing page in OINP website where you can double check if your tier 4 or 5 occupation is qualified for this. Also, another item that I want to highlight specifically for this, when you try to double check if your occupation is actually qualified, you have to make sure that you're looking at the right location because there are some restrictions around some select tier 4 or 5 occupation that's only qualified if you're working outside the GTA area. And, if you are within the GTA area, there are some tier 4 or 5 occupations that wouldn't qualify as well. So just check that on the OINP website. It's published and you're able to double check it there. Okay. Another thing here would be the wage requirement. So there's also median wage requirement for this specific stream. Same as the foreign worker stream, what we've discussed earlier, where if you're hired in a position where the environment is unionized, or your wage rulings are covered with a collective bargaining agreement, then you're exempted from the requirement for the median wage rate as well. Okay. And then the work requirements, for you to qualify, you have to have at least total of 9 months of work experience. So again, 9 months, that 9 months work experience should be obtained in the last 3 years. So if we talk about the point of reference again today, we'll say that any work experience gained from 2023 of February 7 would be covered for that 3-year period. The total of 9 months work experience needed does not need to be consecutive months. It could be, from the first year, you could have like 6 months, and then the rest you can count whenever you've earned it for that past 3 years. Again, as long as it's obtained in the last 3 years, you can count all those hours. Okay. Um, yeah, and the next slide. Um, for the additional requirements, so again, these are just additional requirements that you can think that you should consider for this one. Education requirements, secondary diploma needed, ECA is required if you did not study within Canada. And again, some demonstration from the employer that the position is urgent for you to be able to be supported for this specific stream. Same requirement as earlier for other streams. If your occupation has a mandatory licensing requirement in the province of Ontario, you must fulfill that to qualify for the work that you're applying for this specific stream. Okay. So I'll go over the employer requirements just very quickly. So for this one, again, after you've checked that you're qualified as an applicant, and your job offer is also qualified, you want to make sure as well that your employer is actually capable of supporting you, because that's key to the process. So if this is your first time researching about OINP, just to give you a bit of a history, last year and the previous years, OINP expression of interest is quite straightforward. If you feel like you qualify, you as an applicant can go to the portal, submit your expression of interest, and then when you get nominated, there are some paperwork that you need to bring to your employer to fill out to add to your application. However, since July of last year, the process have changed. It's now employer driven. So what that means is, if you're asking, if you want to participate in this program, you need to talk to your employer, and your employer must create a job offer application under your name in the OINP employer portal for you to be able to participate in this specific job offer stream programs. So again, if your employer is familiar with it, they've endorsed someone before, it's easy. But for those that are unaware, not sure about it, they need to create a profile first before they can actually endorse you. Okay, so these are some of the mandatory requirements. They need to be in an active business for at least 3 years, which means if they're brand new to the business, just they opened up this year, unfortunately they can't provide support. They need to be in Ontario. You as an applicant has to be in Ontario as well, working for your work location, and they cannot have any violation from Occupational Health and Safety Act for them to qualify as well. Okay, for additional requirements, the next slide please, Jess. If your employer is located in the GTA area, they need to be able to demonstrate that they have at least $1 million minimum gross annual revenue. And if your employer is outside the GTA, then $500,000 minimum gross annual revenue is required. Full-time employer requirement is also something that needs to be double checked. So for those employers within GTA, they need to have at least 5 full-time employees that are Canadians or permanent resident. And if it's outside GTA, at least 3 full-time employees that are Canadian and permanent resident. Okay. Next slide. So again, some documents that you will have to prepare in advance, language results, ECA, reference letters from your employers. You need to engage with your employer. I know sometimes it's very difficult to initiate that conversation. Like I've had a lot of clients asking, Miss Angela, how can I approach my employer? I don't know how to say this. Again, you have to be very straightforward with it because again, ultimately, the goal is to become a permanent resident. So that conversation has to start. The earlier, the better. Okay. So I think that's the end of my part for today. So I'm going to, I know Jazz has to switch the slides, but I'm going to hand over the floor to Mary to move forward with the rest of the conversation today. And after Mary's done, we'll come back and then try to answer any of your questions in the meantime. If you have any questions, please be sure to pop them in the chat box and we'll go through all of the questions in there later. Okay, Mary, go ahead.
Thank you, Angela. And thank you for having me today in today's session. So I'm just going to run through my slide because of time. Jazz, if you want to go to next slide. So my name is Mary Ogenyi-Igoche, and I am the founder and principal consultant of Ubuntu Worldwide. You can hear me? Okay. And I'm the founder and principal consultant of Ubuntu Worldwide Immigration Consultant, Inc. Just like many of you, I moved to Canada 2019 as an international student, and I've gone through the full cycle, became a permanent resident September 2021. And then through the course of my journey, I've mostly worked with like the immigrant population, promoting settlement and integration of newcomers, and also worked with the city of Sault Ste. Marie, and then finally became a Canadian citizen. So just want to say that, I know how everybody wants to get the PR, how important it is to you, and I can really empathize with your journey and support you. Next slide. So Angela has done an amazing job breaking down like the eligibility and the requirement for employers. So I'm just going to go straight to the scoring factor. We'll talk on international stream, foreign worker, in demand, and then common mistakes. And then when you get your nomination, what next? So just a quick news. Ontario yesterday posted the allocation for 2026, and they have like 14,119 nominations. So this is just to tell you that knowing the mistakes when you're putting your application is going to save you from rejection, or just tapping into that 14,000 to get your nomination to apply for PR. So the slots are kind of limited. Next slide. So when you talk of ONIP, it's an economic pathway, right? And when you talk about economic pathway, Canada is not just looking for people to depend on the system. They are looking for people who can contribute. So that's where they are looking for, okay, what job are you doing? Do you have education? Do you have language skills? Where are you based? So all those things is what add up to your points. And that point will determine if you get an invitation or if you don't get an invitation. Next slide. So the scoring factor for job offer stream, basically most of them are all the same, just one or two differences. So this one, if you have a job in tier 0 or 1, so that is like a high tier level, high NOC, you get 10 points. And if your job is tier 2 or tier 3, which is like the medium level, you get 8. And if it's like low skill job whereby you don't need like a bachelor to do it, you're like learning on the job, tier 4, tier 5, you get 0. And then your wage, the more you make, the more points you get. So making $40 per hour or higher, you get that full 10 points. If you're making 35, you get 8 points. And the lesser you make, the lesser your points drops down. So it's all about, giving this pathway is economic. They are looking for people who can promote economic growth in Ontario. They are giving the point to people who are like making more and already contributing to Ontario as a province. Next slide. So this is about like the hourly wage too, right? It depends on what category or occupation falls under. So these are the categories and it's based on like the in-demand sector. So if you look at the slide, it says tier 0 is for like managerial roles, senior management. Tier 2 is business finance. No, tier 2 is natural and applied. And then tier 3 is healthcare. So basically, Ontario is telling us that this is like their first top priority. So for if your NOC falls within those fields, then you get the 10 full points. Then if your occupation falls under tier 7 is trades, transport. We know that trades in Canada needs to expand, construction. So they are giving it like they are making it their second priority, which is 7 points. And then if your job falls under tier 1, which is business, or tier 9, which is in manufacturing, you get 5. If it falls under tier 4, education and law, or natural resource, you get 4 points. And then if you fall under, your job falls under 5 or 6, which is sales. We know that sales right now, most community are removing sales. Even Ontario, they're removing, like they're not doing targeted draw for sales. So that way they are giving a 3 point because it's something like, it's not a priority for Ontario. The priority is healthcare, trades, and management, like managerial role. Next slide. So now, if you have status in Canada, so if you're a worker or on a study permit, you get 10 full point because you have status. But if you're out of status, you don't have a valid work permit, you don't have a valid study permit, you don't have a visitor record, you get 0. Because when you have permit, you can also contribute. So without permit, that means you're just in the community. You can't do anything. Your job tenure too matters. If you're 6 months or more, that means you've been already contributing to the Ontario system government, you get 3 points. And if you're just starting your job, 6 months or less, you get 0. Earnings. So as I said, it's economic. It's all about growth. They just want, how you can contribute to boost the province wealth. If you're making 40K or more, you get 3 points. And if you're making less than 40K, you get 0 point. Next slide. Okay. So education, right? The more advanced you are, the better, like the more points you get. If you have a PhD, you get 10 points. If you have a master's, you get 8. If you have a bachelor, and that's how it goes. If you have less than a college degree, it goes to 0. So the more qualified you are, the more points you get. And also your job tenure, right? If you've been in that job for a long time, you get 3 points. If you've less than 6 months, you get 0 points. Earning the same thing, 40K and above, you get 3. Less than 40K, you get 0. So field of study here. If you did a course in healthcare, trades, agriculture, natural resources, you get 12 points. If you've done a course in administration, you get 6. If you do a course in arts or social science, you get 0. So this is tying back to the priority of Ontario. And if you have a Canadian degree, so this is for the international stream, right? If you have a Canadian degree, you get 10 points. And if you have more than one Canadian degree, so there are some people that do 1+1 or 2+1, they do like a diploma and then do another diploma, you get 10 points. But if you just have a single certificate, one diploma, you get 5 points. And then your region too determines the points you get. So if you're in Northern Ontario, like if you're in the North rural community, you're more advantaged because Ontario will give you 10 points for having a job offer for you being in a smaller community and also for you studying in a smaller community. But if you're outside, like let's say you're outside the GTA, you also get that 8 points. If you studied outside the GTA, you get 8 points for having a job offer and for studying outside the GTA. If you are inside the GTA, you get 3 points for having a job offer inside the GTA and 3 points for having studied inside of the GTA. And if you studied in Ontario, in Toronto, because that's a big city, right? You don't need any more growth in Toronto, you get 0 points. So basically, Ontario is saying that they need more people in rural communities. If you study there, if you have like a job offer there, then you get the full 10 points. Language too is also a requirement, but you can if you get less than CLB7, you don't get points. But language is just like an additional point. So your application will not be rejected from ONIP if you have CLB6. It's just that you just lose the point of getting either 4 to add to your profile. But if you don't get like CLB7, you're also fine. It's just an additional point when it comes to language for international stream. And then official language. So if you have English CLB 7 and French CLB 6, you get 10 points. If you have one language, so either like French or English, you just get 5. So this is also an add-on, an additional points for language. So that what I just showed is like the scoring factor for international student stream. But however, when it comes to go back to the other slide. Okay, when it comes to the in-demand stream, the priority is based on skills, because in-demand stream, as Angela said, target tier 4 and 5. So ONIP is not expecting you to have high education, to have a PhD, because those jobs is mostly like laborer, production worker. So the expectation is pretty much low. They are focused more on your skills. So what you only need for the in-demand stream is CLB4. They are not expecting you to have 7 because you're doing a low skill job. And when it comes to the foreign worker stream, there's also no point for education because the focus is on work experience. And that's why they're asking you to have 2 years work experience, in whether inside or outside of Canada. So every stream has a focus. International stream is focused on having a Canadian education and graduating within 2 years. In-demand stream is focused on skills, and foreign worker stream is focused on having that 2 years solid work experience. Next slide. Okay. So now this is just the common grounds for refusals, right? For ONIP, as I said, we just have 14,000 slots. One of the common grounds is when you submit your expression of interest. And then, because when you create your expression of interest, it's just like a profile telling Ontario, I have this, I have this, I have this. Ontario is not going to ask you for proof. You're just going to tell them what you have. They're not going to say, okay, is it true or is it false? When you get the invitation, that's when you need to submit the supporting document. So if you say you have a master's, if you say you have CLB7 and you are getting points for that, you should also be providing that supporting document. So you're not going to put something different in your profile or expression of interest, and then when you're submitting, your document is not meeting the standard of what you say you have. So that will be a grounds for rejection, because if Ontario should remove the point, let's say they gave you 10 points for having a tier in tier 0, but when you submitted your document, they realize your job is tier 3. So that means you were not even entitled to the 10 points, and maybe let's say your score was 80. So when they remove the remaining points, you are not even up to 80. So that means you never even qualified to receive that ITA in the first place that you got. So that is a ground for them to return your application. So make sure when you're creating your expression of interest, whatever you are declaring is true and it matches with the documents you have. So your job offer not meeting the knock wage, that is a very, very common mistake I see. And Angela already did an amazing job talking about it. You have to know the stream you're going for. If you're going for international stream, the wage is low. If you're going for in-demand stream or foreign worker stream, the wage is the median. So you have to always have the wage. And ONIP, so far from my experience, they are very good at, sending you that email and also even having your employer copied on it to let them know that, oh, we review this application and this wage is not meeting. Can you explain in the next 5 business days? So they will always give you that courtesy to send you that message. And then if you're unionized, make sure you put your collective agreement. And then your application can be returned if your employer in the first place did not even meet the requirement, or if your job is not full-time permanent. Angela talked about this again, right? You can be doing full-time, especially people in healthcare. You are casual, but you're working 70 hours in a week. No, it has to be full-time, because when you're submitting your application, you have to also have a letter of reference. You also have to have your pay stubs to show that the hours you're working is matching the full-time permanent job offer you have. So knowing the difference between a bachelor most people know is 4 years, 3 years, but the confusion comes in with Ontario graduate certificate and diploma, and Ontario, regular diploma, Ontario diploma. So Ontario graduate certificate, you have to have a prior education before you can do a graduate, because it's graduate is advanced. And then for diploma, it has to be 2 years. If you did a PSW for 1 year or 8 months, you don't qualify for the international stream. So most people, will get an invitation, but when they submit the application is returned because they are not even meeting the requirement. Because of international stream, you have to either have bachelor, a graduate certificate, or a 2-year diploma program. Then if you're also an international student, when you're applying, make sure your 2 years is starting from your completion letter. So when you got your completion letter from the school, and then you're not putting it after you got, like, you can't be putting, you can't graduate 2021 and you're applying for international stream now, because like you've passed the window, right? Also, if you're applying like the same day, let's say your 2 years window is ending today or is ending yesterday. If you put in your application on that same day, there's something they call a lock-in date. Ontario is going to lock that date and it doesn't matter. But the thing is that you have to put it in before that, like the expiry elapse, before Ontario can lock that date as the final submission date. And then the last one is weak intent to reside in Ontario. So as I said, there's 14,000 slots. Everybody's putting their application. Ontario is not looking for people to just come to Ontario, get PR, and then move to Nova Scotia or move to Alberta tomorrow. They want you to stay in Ontario to boost economic growth. So what are you drafting in your intent to reside? It's a 500 word document that is on the application. Make sure you're tying it to your pull factors. Is your pull factor family? Just stating that, oh, I'm working in Ontario, that is not enough. You need to have like other factors. Do you have communities? Are you engaged in cultural groups? Like, what do you do? So make sure all those factors tie into your intent to reside. Next slide. So, and basically I just said what I what I wanted to see on this slide. So basically, family, community, put your lease. For my clients, I go as far as asking them, give me your lease. If you have a property, put it in, because if I have a property, I can't just wake up and say I'm moving tomorrow, right? You think of when you want to sell. So that's like a strong pull factor in Ontario. And then how do you get like ties to community, get involved, attend events, just be out there. Nomination can also be revoked. So when you get the nomination, that is not the final bus stop. You still have IRCC to send your application in. So if you ever change your employer, because this pathway is employer specific pathway, so your employer is supporting you. If you change your employer, if your employer gets fired, like if your employer fires you, then that certificate of nomination becomes useless because it's tied to that employer. And then if you decide to leave the province, which I know some people do, but just be mindful that, you have a second step to apply to IRCC, which may, it could be a refusal, IRCC may write you, it could even be a misrepresentation, right? Because you told them you want to stay in Ontario and then right now you're moving. So mind you that when you're applying for this provincial pathway, you have to be with that same employer, and then you have to really be in Ontario because you want to reside in Ontario. Next slide. So I just wanted to show you how the certificate of nomination looks like. So this is the certificate of nomination. This is just recently we got this. And then your employer name, you see, I just redacted it, but the employer name is basically on the certificate of nomination. Your NOC is basically on the certificate of nomination. This certificate is valid for 6 months. It's not a frame whereby you keep and hang on your wall. As soon as you get it, you need to apply for PR. I've seen people allow their certificate to expire. I've seen people applying for PR like, 1 month to the expiry of the certificate, because a lot of things happen. So make sure that as soon as you get it, your documents are already ready to go. After 6 months, it expires. The certificate comes with a work permit support letter. So when you get your certificate of nomination, then you can now apply for a work permit based on T13, which is LMIA exempt. Your employer does not have to pay the $1,000. They have to pay just $230, and then they can apply for a work permit, which will have your employer name on it. So you cannot work for any other employer. That permit is tied to your employer. And then the work permit support letter is also valid for 6 months. When the certificate expires, the work permit letter also expires. So make sure you use them if you're running out of status or if you need to put your PR application as soon as possible. Next slide. So I'm just going to say this, as Angela mentioned, I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. And how can I support? Angela and I were both immigrants. We've been through the system. We know how the system operates. We know how desperate people want PR, and we are ever here to serve you. So if you want to reach out to us, please feel free to. I offer full application representation from community or provincial to final PR. I offer also review. As I tell my clients, when it comes to immigration, you can also do it yourself. That's just the truth. But then make sure you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, please meet either myself or Angela and then seek professional support. Fees are affordable, are flexible, and also make sure before you go, I know Angela said we're regulated. I said I'm regulated, but you can also do your due diligence by going to the CICC college website, and you can either type my first name or last name, or even our immigration firm, type AV Immigration, type Ubuntu. You will see our details there, and just make sure that whoever you decide to use at the end of the day, that person is not a ghost consultant, because RCC can also give you misrep for using a ghost consultant, and you don't want to gamble your PR. So just putting it out there. And then, yeah, I think that's all for me. Next slide, let me see. Oh, questions. It's okay. Yeah, that's all for me. So pass it back to you, Angela. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mary. I appreciate that. And again, I want to just piggyback on what Mary mentioned around ensuring that you have when you're trying to hand over your file or case to someone else to take care of, you want to make sure that that person is legitimate, right? We've encountered, and I know my staff managing the social media would often get questions like, are you legitimate? Is this a legitimate business? Anyone can just outright say, yes, we're legitimate, but we really recommend you to also do your due diligence. No, there's a lot of I've encountered people before reaching out asking, what can I do? The former agency or consultant that handled my case said something about me that's not true and submitted it to immigration. Again, reasoning around that, like blaming your consultant or agency because of a misrepresentation will not fly very well to IRCC. So ultimately, you will be the one responsible. So whatever activities, information that your consultant is submitting on your behalf, you are going to be ultimately responsible. You're the one that's going to either reap the benefits or harbor whatever negative impact that could bring you. So very important. Okay. All right, so I think we still have a few minutes left, so we'll now move over to the questions. You can start putting in all your questions in the chat. We'll go through all of the questions in the chat right now. Let's see. I think the first question, the case TFW NOC is 72410, worked 1 year on the same occupation. Second year, still the same NOC, and only got the mandatory license on the second year. In this case, can still claim the 2 years experience. So, okay, so um, and Mary, feel free to jump in with your thoughts around this. Um, unless you were hired initially as kind of like an apprentice or someone that's performing the duty not as a licensed professional for that specific field, you can still definitely claim it because someone in training for a specific role has virtually the same duties and responsibilities. So rightfully you're okay to use the same NOC. However, I don't believe, legally speaking, employers are allowed to hire someone fully that's not licensed to conduct a duty or responsibility for a licensed individual. So so again, my interpretation here is if you're in training, you're an apprentice, using the same NOC, trying to bridge and get your license, then no problem at all. You can definitely, claim the 2 years because it's the same NOC. Mary, what do you think?
So I agree with what you said. Just to add also, so I don't know the duties and responsibility of this NOC
Yeah.
because I have to check. But if you go to check the NOC on the NOC website or portal, if the requirement is stating that you need to have license, then that's something you need to meet, right? Because there's also the requirement from IRCC. So if they are saying you need, just like a nurse, if for you to be a nurse, for it to count as a nurse, you need to be registered. So if that NOC itself is saying you need to have that license, then I would say you need to, like your work experience starts counting when you have that license because it's already stated on the NOC.
Thank you. Let's now move on. Next one. If you're working with an agency, would they be qualified to assist with OINP? So when you say, not sure, I understand this agency meaning a recruitment agency. Is that what this means? Or is it an institution? Um, if it's um if it's recruitment, kind of like placement agency where their business is hiring for filling position from different sectors and such, I don't believe they are qualified to provide support for OINP because unless you are their direct employee. Um, so say it's a recruitment agency and you're one of the recruiters of that specific business. As long as they meet all of the requirements that we've covered earlier, then they should be able to proceed. Right, Marie? Yeah. Um, so what are the key factors to increase my chance of receiving an invitation under the OINP? I think the HCP stream, the Human Capital Priority stream, this is not under OINP. This is Ontario Express Entry stream, I believe, if you're referring to that. So again, profile optimization requires personalized advice depending on your credentials and profile. So this would tie up to how you will be able to increase your CRS points because again it's driven by express entry. So for cases like this, unfortunately we're not able to provide personalized advice, but you can reach out to myself or Mary later on to schedule a separate consultation if you're interested to have personalized conversation around this. However, typically, language scoring is really a top item that you have to look at to make sure you increase your overall CRS points. From Quebec, interested in the skilled trades. Unfortunately, this specific program got canceled earlier. So this is where Ontario, I believe, made a decision to cancel and return a lot of different applications that are already in progress. So this one is presently not available. However, depending on the trades occupation that you have, you always have the option to take a look at other programs like Express Entry because if it's high skilled, you can still participate under the Canadian Experience class. Mary, you want to answer this question? If the employer gives 1 year contract but for working 40 hours a week, is it acceptable for OINP?
Okay. The short answer is no, it's not acceptable because your employment contract has to have no end date. That's what makes it permanent, right? Because if it's 1 year contract, so what if the contract is over? Are you moving to Nova Scotia? So it has to be full-time permanent for it to go through ONIP and also IRCC.
Okay, so let's look at the next one. I'm from the Sioux and completed my 2 year program course in healthcare leadership from Sioux College in 2025, working in Davie Home, and recently got permanent full-time. Question is, am I eligible for OINP? Or if yes, which stream best for me? I do have 4 years experience back home. Um, so yes, if you completed your program in 2025, just last year, if you are working, oh no, so if you're working full time as under housekeeping and laundry, um, housekeeping, I think this is one of my example earlier, the light duty cleaner. It is a tier 5 occupation. So under international student stream, it may not work. However, we can take a look at, I'm not sure if housekeeping is still part of the in-demand skill stream occupation. If it's one of the occupation in in-demand skill stream, you can, after obtaining a total of 9 months work experience. And if your work is if you're getting median wage rate, unless again you belong in a union or you're part of the collective bargaining agreement, then you're exempted with the wage rate requirement. Um, can we also know about the fund requirements back? I'm not sure I understand this question. The fund. Alan, are you there? Do you want to elaborate what this question is? Maybe not.
Hello? Hello?
There. Hi,
Hi,
Alan. Go
hi.
ahead. Go ahead, po.
We just want to ask, like, is there like a bank requirement, especially if you're gonna apply for the Ontario stream? Any type of stream, like how much should you have in your bank statement or whatsoever?
Okay. Sure. So thank you so much, Sir Alan. So for proof of funds. So what's great is in the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program job offer streams, proof of funds is actually not required. So since you're considered to have full-time employment in Canada and you're already working and in Canada, you don't need to provide proof of funds. However, I always recommend my clients to still provide bank statements, however modest amount you have in your bank statements when applying for the nomination. And the reason behind that is there's still some economic establishment test that the officer will be conducting during the review of your application. So you want to make sure that you're able to demonstrate that you're not going to rely on any social services once they move you from your temporary residence to permanent residence at a later time. Okay. Um, so I'm from Trinidad. I've been working as a dental assistant for the past 9 years, but not certified. Would I still be considered under the NOC? And where do I start by getting a job offered job? So I assume, Emily, you're not in Canada yet, is what I'm thinking. So, so if you're looking at participating in the OINP job offer stream, you have to get a full-time permanent offer from one of the employers. Um, how do I start by getting one or being offered a job? Um, so for me and Mary, job placement, job matching, and recruiting is actually not part of our practice scope. However, based on our clients' experience, they do find job posting from job banks, Indeed, LinkedIn. These are the key job boards or most employers use for their recruitment. So you can definitely take a look at that. I don't have the NOC definition right in front of me for dental assistant, so I'm not able to speak about the licensing registration requirement around that. However, again, just like what Mary mentioned earlier, what we've covered earlier, I invite you to double check the National Occupation Code definition in the website. Try to see if licensing is required for that specific occupation, and if it is, you will need to obtain that before you're allowed to work in the province of Ontario. Okay. Um, 1+1 program can be eligible for OINP, Mary?
Okay, thank you, Angela. It depends. If it's a postgraduate certificate, it will be eligible because there are some postgraduate certificates whereby it's just 1 year, right? So this is not RCIP where you need 1+1, but if you do like a 1-year program, so far it's a postgraduate certificate, it will go through ONIP. If it's a 1-year certificate, then it would not go through. So PSW will not go through. But if you do like health informatics or healthcare administration, those are like postgraduate certificate diplomas, and it's 1 year, and that will go through. Hope I answered your
Okay.
question, Karen.
Another question, Mary, for Alan. Is there no particular programs being prioritized for international student stream like healthcare, or as long as you have 2-year program in Ontario, you're qualified?
Okay. For this question, ONIP is not prioritizing the education, they are prioritizing the job offer. Remember, it's employer job offer stream, right? So it doesn't matter if your work is health informatics or you did RN. If you're all in the healthcare sector, when they do a healthcare draw, you all get the invitation. And right now, from the trend, ONIP is trying to promote or prioritize healthcare and early childhood education because those are like the targeted draw, right? So it depends on when the offer is, the job offer. That's what is a priority for them, not the education itself. And then what else again? Angela, that's all right. Is there a second part to
Yeah,
your
I think
question?
that's
Mhm.
that covered Alan's question. Thank you. Um, from another question, my first question is, what happened to the OINP Master and PhD stream? There was no draw last year. Okay, no one knows. So for um there's what we know is there's no formal communication from Ontario that it has been canceled or scrapped out, but we do know there's no movement to that specific program. Now, what else do we know? There's no communication, so our information is as good as what you have today. We'll have to wait and see if there's going to be some changes this year. But so far, unfortunately, you're right. There's no movement in that specific area. There's a second question here. Working as a housekeeping full time, am I eligible? So again, similar to the question earlier on, housekeeping is a tier 5 occupation. Please double check the OINP website for the in-demand skill stream. See if it's one of the tier 4 or 5 NOCs listed in there. Check also whether that's within GTI or outside GTA qualified NOCs, because there's a difference for that as well. What are the key factors increase my chance of receiving an invitation? Oh no, I think this one has to be profile optimization. So I think we've answered that earlier. Has to be again, it's a formal consultation for that one. What happened to the OINP mess? Oh, does being a meat cutter still included in demand skill for OINP? I'm currently working at Metro. Um, Meat cutter, is it one of the NOCs, Mary? I don't think it is. I don't have the list right in
I
front of
don't
me
think
right
so.
now.
It's more of trades and then home support worker. So,
Yeah. They probably have an industrial butcher in there, I think, from the last time I checked. Yeah, we have to double check the actual list. However, because there's a lot of different meat cutters, right? That's one of the other difficult thing in here. It depends on the actual work that you're doing. Let me see.
so meat cutter is there.
It is there.
65202. Yeah. Meat cutter is there.
Okay. Outside GTA or inside GTA, Mary?
Inside and outside GTA.
Okay, perfect. So there you go. So if you're doing the meat cutter role, it's a qualified occupation under in-demand skill stream. So again, going back to the qualification we've discussed earlier, total of 9 months work experience in that area with median wage rate, unless of course you're part of the union. Last question, because I think we're going over time. So we'll take this one last question. And then we wrap up. Working as full-time forklift supervisor at York Region, is it eligible for OINP? So supervisor, again, this automatically, I think that's tier two, a tier two occupation. So if it is a tier two occupation, your if you have if you're a student, you have a qualifying program that you've completed in the last 2 years, then international student stream might be an option. If you're not a student, you're looking at the foreign worker stream, then you need to have total of 2 years work experience obtained in the last 5 years with median wage rate, unless again you're part of the union. So I think that brings us to the last portion of our webinar today. Again, Mary, my friend, thank you so much for joining us
Angela,
today.
sorry, before wrap up, I have a last question. If you can recognize me, this is Sakib, one of your client from Toronto.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Sakim.
Yeah, so I'm one of the clients of AV Immigration, eagerly waiting for an ITA. So, Angela, do I have any hope this year from GTA? Any
So,
drop?
Sakib, if we're talking about, I think in the past we did have conversation around other potential programs that you might want to explore outside the area in GTA. So I think what we can do, if you want to do a follow-up meeting with me, we can have that conversation separately, and then we can revisit where you are at today, and then how we can move forward from there. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, perfect. Because I don't want to discuss everything about you out in the open. You know what I'm saying?
And it's so stressful time, and
I know.
I don't know what
Uh,
ONP doing. I was hoping for a general draw or at least uh, uh, targeted occupation of which are they can see the EOI already submitted and
yes.
include the
Mm,
GTA.
yeah. Let's do a follow-up,
Yeah,
follow-up, Sakib, at some point. Okay. Get in touch with me and then we'll schedule something. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good. Great to hear from you, and thank you for joining us. Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. So again, that brings us to the last portion. So thanks, Jazz, for flashing the series that we have. So just want to give this advanced reminder to everyone that AV Immigration is doing webinar series. The next one is again with my friend Mary. We're going to talk about the Rural Community Immigration Pilot Program on February 21st. Jasmine will be releasing some information on how to sign up on that. So if you're interested in knowing more about that next, join us again on Feb 21 so we can talk more about that as well. In the meantime, for today, we appreciate everyone's time, coming in, sharing your evening with us. Mary, thanks for sharing your time. I know you're very busy as well. Appreciate that. Any final words from you, Mary?
No, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate doing this with you. And also thank you to everybody that joined us wherever you are. I see a lot of people from the Philippines, Ghana, in Canada. Thank you for coming and joining us and listening to us. Okay,
Okay,
that's all.
perfect. All right. Thank you. Thank you again for joining us today. And then we'll hope to hear and see you again in our next webinar. Okay. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you. Bye.